Hello and welcome back to Remy's Role-Playing Realm, a video where we're going to talk about why it's important for you to include flaws in your character creation. Flaws can make your character so much more believable, give them depth, and make connections to real people to learn exciting things in the game. So let's get into the discussion, and we're going to talk about why you should have flaws for your character. Number one is flaws make your character more realistic and relatable. Your character is gonna have things that you can relate to when you give them some flaws. Fictional characters, even though we'd like them to be, are not perfect. They can't be. Otherwise, they're going to be pretty boring to play. And they're just going to, oh, I'm right all the time. You know, they can sure think that, but that could be a flaw, right? So we want to make sure that we include flaws into what the character is created to be like. Flaws add complexity, depth, personality. Flaws can make your character more interesting, make people care about your character, and really get people to invest in who your character is. Next, flaws can create internal and external character growth, meaning if your character starts one way and like treats people poorly or, does something that is just hard to get the party to go along with, then the cool thing about that, it is a eventual story arc that is, I've overcome this as we've journeyed together. I've learned that the world doesn't revolve only around me, and that my choices don't only impact me but impact everyone else. So that's something to absolutely be thinking about when we're talking about flaws, and it's something you can grow in. That leads me to my next point. Flaws should not totally define what your character does and the choices they make. They should have a small impact on them, but should not be totally defining. I am, what I would like to think that I'm a kind person. I am kind to people. However, I have flaws that make me lash out occasionally and get upset, especially when it's about a topic that I really care about. So maybe your character is not fully defined by the choices or the ideas they have, the flaws they have, but just one certain thing can really get under their skin and make them do stuff that they'll probably regret, or things like that. That's what a true flaw would look like in your character building. One of the coolest things about RPGs is it's a role-playing game, right? Role-playing games, Dungeons and Dragons, Pathfinder, whatever you're creating your character for, it can be in a number of games. The coolest thing about a flaw is it's going to give you areas to role-play with others about. They offer unique traits and behaviors that your players have to find a way to overcome. And if you're truly playing to that character's flaw, then maybe they really can't leave combat until they're 100% sure everyone is safe. Or if one person is left unsafe, it really just floors them and they can't leave combat. Or there's just so many things you could apply to your character based on their backstory that really adds a level of depth and just overall personality to your character and makes them that much more fun to play. Flaws are really cool because they're something you should take into account anytime you make a decision in game. Your flaws, your past, your background, the things you know impact your decisions. So if you're truly not playing the game as yourself, you're playing the game as your character, you're not always going to make the best decision for the game, right? Sometimes the game, I'm like, I know I should do this, but my character might actually make this decision because they're afraid of losing that person, or maybe they're afraid of their magic going crazy, or it could be a number of things, right? So think about those things and how your character would make that decision, not just how you as the game strategist would make the decision. It's one of the funnest things you can think about, is how would my character actually act in this moment, not how am I going to win this game. Because ultimately, when you take a large risk, it's either going to be really awesome and pay off, or really awful, and either way, that's a pretty cool story. Another cool thing you could do with flaws is work with your DM, GM, whatever you call them, your game runner, your dungeon master. Work with them, talk to them. Hey, I would really like you to help me make sure I'm following this flaw. Do you have any ideas of how I can incorporate it? This flaw really impacts this type of game, and is that okay? Make sure that your dungeon master is, one, cool with it, and make sure too that they understand what you're trying to tell, the story you're trying to get across in it, because it's gonna be beneficial if your dungeon master knows, because they can help you get it rolling. And if you're all setting down to tell a cooperative story, it's important that more than one person knows what's going on. Another cool thing that can be done with flaws is that your dungeon master can incorporate this into a plot hook, into a reason, and create a situation that it really exemplifies why this is a flaw, or what you can do to overcome it. Because we live with flaws in real life, right? There's flaws of our own that we have to figure out how to overcome. So the important thing is our dungeon master knows that and can give us an opportunity in game to actually live it out, to role play it, and to get it out there on the table, and then have the other people learn to respond. That's one of the coolest things about D&D, is that you can learn to respond to different ideas and things and boundaries and flaws, and you can learn how to navigate the world in a setting where it's not going to be as impactful as if it was out in the real world. So it's a really cool opportunity to be able to learn and grow in this way. Another thing that flaws can do are they're going to impact the group dynamic. Maybe you have this certain thing, and you need to work with your group and with your DM on how this is allowed at your table, because you can't just be a jerk to be a jerk. You know, you can't just, oh, my character would steal this from them. Inner party stealing can really hurt people occasionally, and inner party like quarrels and things like that. So make sure that everyone at the table's okay with it, and make sure the DM's okay with it, because I've seen where one player character stole something from another player character just because they thought that they could use it better, and they just took it basically without permission. And just don't do that. That's toxic inter party quarreling and stealing, unless your players are all okay with it. But don't start that way, especially for newer players. You're gonna need to make sure your flaw doesn't negatively impact the overall experience of the game. Your flaw has the opportunity to make the game more interesting and fun, or it can sometimes lead to the downfall of gameplay. Like I said, in the instance that I saw, the player stole it was a ring of dark vision that that player had found, and they were so excited when that was found. Then after everything was said and done, and the other player stole it from them because they thought they could use it better, neither of them had dark vision, so one of them was going to go blind anyway. And just because the other one could make better checks, they thought that they deserved to not have the dark vision and all of that. Think about these things, and am I being selfish towards the player or towards the actual character? make sure that everyone's okay with it. It negatively impacted the player, and they were a new player, and they thought about not playing anymore because they didn't like how that went down. I feel like it's important, and you need to know that everything you do in the game, especially around a new player, could impact their overall experience with the game. And this game is something that everyone should be able to enjoy and love. So make sure that what you're doing doesn't negatively impact anyone else. Another cool thing that flaws will enable you to do is overcome stereotypes. So, say you have a paladin that is dedicated to an oath of good, an oath of redemption, an oath of vengeance, an oath of, whatever the oath they choose, right? So, say they're dedicated to that, but your flaw is you do anything for money. And then ultimately you're challenged in your character about, well, they're paying us, but is this really, redeeming, or is this really working towards my goal? And it's up to your DM to talk about that. But as far as like a paladin, if they don't follow their oath, they could eventually become an oath breaker or lose their abilities from their source of their oath. So think about those things and how your character would overcome it. It's like, hey, I'm really driven by money. Sometimes the best thing to do is tell the other people in your party, I struggle with this, and you need to help me keep on track. If you can help me with that, that would be awesome, because if I get off track, I might not be able to add value to your party anymore, and I want to do that. So think about those things. Think about the things that you add to your party in that situation, and maybe involve your party. Remember that flaws should be balanced. They shouldn't make up your whole character and who they are. They should absolutely be balanced and not fully define who your character is. Your character can be led back. A flaw isn't a permanent decision. It's not a, oh, this is, cemented in here. You can be changed by others. Others impacting you can happen. So the next time you're creating a character, make sure to incorporate some flaws into that character build to make them so much cooler and more enjoyable to play. Speaking of character creation, if you're wanting some more of that and some cool ideas around it, I suggest you watch the video on your screen now, because it's going to teach you some of that. I want to thank you for stopping by. Hit the like button and do me a favor and comment one of your favorite flaws to incorporate into your character. Thanks. See you around.